right, welcome back everyone. In today's video, we are officially starting our card review series for Legends of the Force. And what better way to start off than with the 15 true Legends of the Force cards? Meaning, these are the cards that are in Star Wars Legends canon and not Disney's official canon. And what's so good about these cards is this means that we can get anything from Star Wars now. From the comics, from the old games, anything. It opens up a massive potential for what this game can become. And for like the Magic fans out there, right? This is almost like a universes beyond, but like it's universes within, because it's within the Star Wars universe. And I think the best card to start off with is the only Star Wars Legend canon leader, Darth Revan, Scourge of the Old Republic. And what you'll notice immediately is the gold bar below the card with a golden L. And that just denotes that it is a Legend canon card and not official Disney canon. Darth Revan is a villainy only leader, and it's the first single aspect leader, which is cool. But the question is that single aspect worth it? Well, he has the ability, when a friendly unit attacks and defeats a unit, you may exhaust Revan. If you do, give an experience token to that friendly unit. He also flips on 5 resources as a 3/6 Force Sith, restore 1, and the ability, when a friendly unit attacks and defeats a unit, you may give an experience token to that friendly unit. The Force and Sith traits are all good. And Restore 1 is not nothing. I actually was playing a bunch of games into Darth Revan. I actually lost a couple games by 1 health. It's not nothing. The ability is also essentially a free experience token if you can effectively defeat and trade your units into your opponent's units. It's also really thematic because it's a level up feature. And since Darth Revan is from a game, the level up, give an experience token, it's really, really themed really nice. The problem I have with Revan is he has average stats for a 5 resource deploy leader. And that would be fine. However, the downside of him being only a villain aspect looms extremely large on him. Before we give a rating, right, let's look at Revan a little bit more in depth. To me, Revan screams mid-range leader. Only 1 color means that it's going to be really, really hard to get enough good aggro cards in your deck to be competitive. And control also really relies on event removal and a bunch of other big cards. Like typically you're riding big green and yellow or big green and blue cards to make a control deck work. So I don't see him in control. I don't see him in aggro. I really see him as a like mid-range leader. I think Revan's bread and butter is going to be ambush synergy. Since you're trying to attack and trade into units, ambush just makes sense with Revan, right? And I have said ambush is the best keyword in the game. So a leader that kind of rewards ambush should also be really good, right? And again, 1 aspect kind of makes it a little bit harder for him to meet that bar. I see Revan in 2 colors, either in yellow, which I know yellow is just the best single color for villain, hands down. And it has ambush and shield built into it. Both work really, really well with Revan's ability. The other color is green, since you have access to ECL and timely intervention. And then there's cards such as Vader and Maul, which also have ambush and work really well with Revan. The next 2 cards we're going to talk about that I haven't shown yet are also designed to work with Revan, and they're going to go into any single Revan deck that you try to build. I think Revan is a low-end 3-star card. He shows a lot of potential, he has a lot of promise, and he maybe gets carried by yellow villain or ECL. The question just becomes, will he get enough unique support to Revan himself that makes him the choice to run over other leaders? Put a pin in this real quick. The next couple cards, Revan's also going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about him and some more thoughts. I do think Revan's a 3-star card. I'm really interested to see more support for him, but he's really exciting. I really like the flavor. I really like what they're trying to do. We'll talk a little bit more on the next couple cards. Revan, 3 stars. Some of the support that I'm talking about for Darth Revan is Darth Revan's Lightsaber, which is a 2-cost villain-only upgrade that gives +2/+2 and the text attached to a non-vehicle unit. If attached unit is a Sith, it gains grit. So this card is really interesting. First off, it works with all Sith units, not just Revan, which is nice. Typically, we've seen, so-and-so's lightsaber only works with that character. This works with all Sith, and you don't even need to be a Force, right? There's other Sith cards that we are going to see, like Sith Legionnaire, spoiler alert, But you put Darth Revan's lightsaber on Sith Legionnaire, it would also gain grit. So things like that do matter. And we also have other Sith leaders in the game that this would work with. You know, Spark Rebellion, Darth Vader, Palpatine. I mean, you flip Palpatine and put Darth Revan's lightsaber on him, he becomes a 612 grit. That's kind of good. A combo with Palpatine is you stick Darth Revan's lightsabers on him, he becomes a 612. You attack with him, his on-attack ability goes off where you defeat a friendly unit, draw a card, and deal 1 damage to a unit. You could actually deal 1 damage to Palpatine himself. He'll get the grit damage before his attack resolves. So you could swing for like a 7 attack Palpatine with Darth Revan's lightsabers. That's just pretty good. So I really like these even outside of Revan is what I'm trying to say. These aren't dependent on Revan being good to be good themselves. But the grit is intended to synergize with Revan. Since you attack into something, you get damage, you get the experience, and now you get the grit as well. And it's just going to take over games. And personally, I have seen it take over a couple games that I've played into it. The real issue with this card is we need a bunch of either aggro or mid-range leaders for this card to really see play. Right now, with Revan and Asajj Ventress from Twilight of the Republic, there are only 2 Sith leaders that flip on 5 resource or below, right? Asajj is 4 resource, Revan is 5. Or maybe it is just good on Darth Vader and Palpatine. Maybe that's just good enough to run this. I did talk about the Palpatine synergy. I've been currently maining Palpatine. I do think I would run one of these in that deck currently, just as a nice finisher, you know, another way to finish something off. It would be nice, and I do run a couple other Sith in that deck. I do have a hard time rating this card, since we're supposed to get a significant amount of lightsabers, and that may make Darth Revan's lightsabers kind of irrelevant, where you might want to play the other cheaper lightsabers that might be more universal instead of this. We'll just have to see. And in fact, we have seen it post me writing the script for this video with Constructed Lightsaber, where I haven't thought about it too much yet, but Constructed Lightsaber already might replace Darth Revan's lightsaber to me. I don't know if that's true, but we'll have to see. However, in Villainy, currently, this is one of the better lightsabers. I think I'm going to give Darth Revan's lightsabers 2 stars. I don't think it's quite good enough. I think upgrades already are kind of okay. And I think after Constructed Lightsaber was revealed, it makes me like this a lot less, where I think I'd rather run Constructed Lightsaber over Darth Revan's lightsaber. I think Darth Revan's lightsaber is 2-star card. The other card that is supposed to directly synergize with Darth Revan is Darth Malak, Covetous Apprentice, which is a 5-cost villain force Sith unit with 4 attack and 7 health, with Overwhelm and the ability, when played, if you control a Sith leader unit, you may ready this unit. Firstly, this is the first community rating card that I have for you. And what that means is, in my Discord, I'm starting to post the preview cards and having you guys rate them. And then I want to compare how my ratings are to what you guys think of a card. Malak had 14 votes, which is one of the lower ones, but it was my mistake. I closed the poll too early. It had an average rating of 3.5 stars, right? It was basically borderline 3 or 4 stars. Let's see how I rate it. Malak actually is kind of the combination of 2 cards we've seen before that were both really good. Boba Fett collecting the bounty and Fett's Fire Spray pursuing the bounty. He has the 5-cost 4/7 stat line, which was insane on Boba Fett. Now, Boba Fett was a leader, so it was free, but we did see that 7 health on turn 4, the 5 resource turn, is a big deal. It's really hard to deal with. There's a couple specialized things that can deal with it, you know, and the fact that Malak isn't a leader, it allows Vanquish to deal with him, which Boba Fett, it didn't deal with Boba Fett in the past. I want to just point out 4/7 on turn 4 is a really good, hard to deal with stat line. But he also has the very similar when played ability to Fett's Fire Spray, which was also run in the same deck, which is kind of funny. But there's one very large difference between the two. You need the Sith leader unit. So Malak will only work if your leader is deployed, where the Fire Spray, Boba Fett could either be deployed or in the leader zone, and it would work, right? So if you could defeat Boba Fett the turn he's flipped, the next turn, if you played Fett's Fire Spray, it would still ready. Where this, as long as you defeat the leader, Malak stays tapped. He does not ready. And just another thing I want to highlight for newer players, if you're just jumping into Star Wars, is Malak works especially well with ambush and especially like a base with ECL. Since Malak's ability is a when played ability, you can ECL him in to give him ambush, which has the same timing as when played triggers. And since you're the active player, you get to choose the order that you resolve those in. So you can resolve the ambush first, so you'll deal 4 damage to a unit, defeat it, gain the experience token, and then you can activate Malak's when played ability to ready him, and then on your next action, attack with him again. And that essentially gives him 2 attacks in 1 turn, which, you could defeat 2 units with him and then make him a 6/9, which is kind of nuts. I want to also highlight for newer players again, this is different wording than the Millennium Falcon piece of junk, which comes into play ready, not a when played ability. So the Millennium Falcon doesn't work well with ambush, where things like Malak and Fett's Fire Spray do work well with ambush. There's a slight difference in wording there. I just want to point that out. If you're a new player, make sure that you understand the difference. Malak is going to be really good with 5 resource deploy Sith leaders. And this is also why I'm worried about Revan. Let me explain. There are currently 2 Sith leaders that flip on 4 and 5. That's Asajj Ventress, Unparalleled Rival, and Darth Revan. So right now, you could play Malak in like an Asajj ECL deck and have yellow-green villain with Malak, which can attack twice the turn you play it, which again is kind of nuts, but Asajj gets defeated by a Stiff Breeze. I'm not sure how good that overall deck will be because you flip Asajj the turn earlier. If she gets defeated, well then Malak doesn't work. And you get like kind of 2 turns to defeat Asajj that way. And then the other leader is Darth Revan, who is a really resilient 5-flip leader. If more 5 resource Sith villain leaders are revealed, it makes Revan less unique among the leader roster, and that will make him less likely to be good. I personally think if we get any 5 resource Sith leader that has any kind of ability that can be relevant at all, the second color already makes up for Revan's downside. Even if we get an average Sith leader that flips on 5, I think it makes Revan a lot worse. But it makes Malak better, and Malak's what we're talking about. You might think, okay, that's everything we can talk about with Malak, we're done. There's one other thing I just want to point out that you should keep your eye on. I want to read Malak again one more time because there's one really cool interaction with him. You need a Sith leader and it needs to be deployed, right? You need to have a Sith leader unit out. Well, if you have a Sith vehicle like Scimitar, right? We've already seen that. Then you pilot it with a leader that can flip on 5 resources like Rio Durant or Major Von Reg. You would then control a Sith leader unit, since the traits that matter are the original card traits. So it would be the Sith from the Scimitar. And then when you flip Rio Durant on it, now it's a leader unit. And so you have a Sith leader unit deployed. But the downside here is there are only 3 Sith vehicles right now, so it's not going to be consistent. But if we ever get a critical mass of Sith vehicles, keep an eye out for that interaction, right? Like, I don't know how many we're going to need. That could be like a sneaky big deal. I'm going to say currently, if we get an absolutely nuts 5 resource Sith leader, Malak has the potential to be a game-breaking 5-star card. I have played into him. Malak coming out and ambushing and readying and hitting again is disgusting. But if we don't get any other Sith leaders at 5 resources, I think he's just a 3-star card. And it wouldn't surprise me again if he becomes a 2-star card just because there's not that much Sith support for him. But right now, 3 stars. And I think he's one of the cards I most want to reevaluate come end of the set. The next card is Forged Starfighter, which is a 1 resource, 1/1 Sith villain vehicle fighter with hidden and raid 1. And typically I say a card like this is just bad, right? 1 star, moving on. However, I do want to say we are getting quite a few 1-cost cards, which eventually we might see a zoo deck rear its ugly head. And for those who are unaware what a zoo deck is or the terminology, it's basically a deck that just overwhelms the board with like a bunch of small and medium cost guys, and that's how they win the game. They just flood the board, they keep attacking, they buff them, and they run into base and they just overwhelm you. The term zoo also, if you're curious, comes from, right, there's no other theme to the deck. You're just small guys. So you get Sith vehicles, you'll get droids, you'll get clones. And in fact, we're already seeing a SWU deck come to fruition with the Rex Unity of Purpose deck. So I'm going to give this card a 2-star rating just because we are possibly, one really good leader away from getting a villain SWU deck to be viable. And honestly, maybe Wat Tambor could actually come back from the grave and be good with enough small units that you just reliably let him use his leader ability, pump your stuff, deal damage, flip on 5. It's similar to how Rex is built, but it's just the villain version. And this would go really well in that SWU deck with Hidden in Raid 1. I'm going to give this a 2-star rating again, just because there could be a SWU deck that people experiment with coming up. Next card is a spoiler alert for Knights of the Old Republic. If you haven't played it, skip this card. It doesn't really matter. Go play that game. It's amazing. And it's Liberated by Darkness, which is a 5-cost yellow villain force event. And you use the force. If you do, you take control of a non-leader unit. At the start of the regroup phase, its owner takes control of it. And this effect has seen play in Commandeer and Change of Heart in these colors. Commandeer did see play when vehicles were running rampant, but it has the extra conditions. It also had the better end of phase effect where you returned it to the owner's hand, so it kind of waylaid it. And Change of Heart costs 1 more, but doesn't have the force token requirement and can be played in hero. The question is, does Change of Heart for 1 less resource make me want to run a force synergy deck? And I think the answer lies in how good the force token is going to be in general and how easy it'll be to get, especially with the rare bases, which we haven't seen yet. So I'm going to give Liberated by Darkness 2 stars because we need to see more force synergy. And I don't think force decks are going to want to run every single color combination. I don't think we're going to see the force token take over, but there will be like 1 or 2 decks that really want to run the force tokens. I just don't know if yellow villain's going to want to be that because yellow villain's already good. So I don't see them weakening their deck to make the force work. But we'll have to see. Liberated by Darkness, 2 stars. The next card is Death Field, which is a 4-cost red villain force event that says deal 2 damage to each non-vehicle enemy unit. If you control a force unit, draw a card. This card resembles Bombing Run, which deals 3 damage to each unit in an arena of your choosing for 5 resources, and Bloodsport, which deals 2 damage to each ground unit for 3 resources. Both really don't see play at all. Is a more expensive one-sided Bloodsport, and I call it a one-sided Bloodsport since Death Field doesn't hit vehicles. It essentially only hits ground units, but also doesn't hit vehicle ground units, so it's also slightly worse. And it also just may draw you a card. Is that good? I don't think so. This is a 1-star card. It's too overpriced. It does too little to be relevant. Bloodsport does not see play, and I don't even think it's close to seeing play. Why would a more expensive Bloodsport that might draw you a card see play? I don't see it. So, 1 star. The next card is HK-47.
Dead organic meat bag.
Which is a 2-cost, 2/4 red villainy Sith droid with the ability, when an enemy unit is defeated, deal 1 damage to its controller's base. FFG did mention that every color combination should have access to a 2-resource, 2/4 unit this set. And this is red villains. And I think a 2/2/4 stat line is going to be really good and relevant. It's still defeated by like Ping Tarkentown. Against any other deck that's not a Ping Tarkentown, it's pretty resilient. The damaging 1 to a controller's base is also, again, not nothing. And this is the type of card that makes me think a third sister aggro deck is viable. I think HK is a 3-star card. He's going to be good in a lot of red villain decks. Even like Boba Fett, any methods necessary. Since this is non-combat damage, he works there. I think he's going to work in third sister decks. He might just be one of the best turn 1 plays that red villain can have. I think he's a 3-star card. I really do. I think he's really good. We need to see how relevant the 2/4 stat line is, but 3 stars. Next card is Sith Legionnaire, which is a 2-resource green villain Sith trooper with 2 attack and 2 health. And the ability, when you control another villainy unit, this unit gets +2 attack. So this card may be good in like a Captain Enoch deck since it's a trooper. It also is a villain, so it can be pulled by Darth Vader, commanding the First Legion. And then it would be a 4/2 since you'll have Vader out with him. Outside of those 2 cases, I think Sith Legionnaire is just meh, right? A 2/2/2 isn't close to being playable, I think, and it's defeated by a light breeze. However, again, a Zoo villain deck may like this guy, so I will give him a 2-star rating. I believe Wat Tambor could become a Zookeeper this set, and if he's a Zookeeper, I think Sith Legionnaire goes in that deck. So now, each heroism color got its own Jedi class, and honestly, I think the theme is pretty cool. First up is Blue Hero's Jedi class, which is Jedi Guardian, which is a 5-cost 4/8 Force Jedi with the ability, while this unit is defending, it gets +2 attack. So we've kind of seen that with Concord Dawn Interceptors. So if you can give Jedi Guardian Sentinel, which, you know, in Blue-Green Hero, there's a multitude of ways to give this guy Sentinel. He can become an absolute monster of a wall to get through. Since he dodges almost all relevant removal, he's a ground unit with 4 attack and 8 health. So he dodges Takedown, he dodges Direct Hit, and he dodges Fell the Dragon. Kind of Vanquish takes him out, but Vanquish takes almost everything out. The 4/8 stat line is extremely important. And I've talked in the past before that there are cards that are just stats that do nothing, right? Big meatballs. And typically at 5 resources, you really need your card to be super scary if it's going to have no effect the turn it comes out. And we've seen a couple cards see play that are slower like this, namely, you know, Poe Dameron Quick to Improvise, which was used in an Anakin blue deck to be played the turn before you flip Anakin to kind of soak up removal. Jedi Guardian doesn't soak removal because, again, he dodges most of it. But if you control the board and then play Jedi Guardian, it just being a big threat that requires a very unclean answer to take out, that could be really good. However, I just think this card is a 2-star card. It's going to have a lot of potential, but typically there are other better things you could be doing at this point in the game where he's just going to be too slow. And even though he's resilient, I think you'd rather have something with more immediate impact than this guy. So Green Hero's Jedi class is the Jedi Consular, which is a 2-cost 1/4 Force Jedi. With the action, use the Force and exhaust him to play a unit from your hand. It costs 2 less, which is a lot like Alliance Dispatcher, which is really good in Luke Skywalker because Luke can give him a shield and protect him, which reliably gives you, the 1-turn ramp on turn 2. Consular gives an even bigger discount, but requires the Force token. He also has 4 health, so he is just built in more resilient, and he may be able to reliably stick on the board in any green deck. Problem comes from, can I reliably get the Force token on turn 1 to get the ramp on turn 2? It's really going to rely on the rare bases. I think typically the green rare base, because then you could run any leaders with him. If yes, right, if you can get the Force token reliably on turn 1, he's good. If no, then he's bad. So again, he's really difficult to rate. I think I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to give him a 2-star rating, as people are going to try him out regardless. And if we get an easy turn 1 Force token in Green Hero, he'll be a 3 or 4-star card. We're just going to have to see. Yellow Hero's Jedi class is the Jedi Sentinel, which is a 4-cost 5/4 Force Jedi with the text, while the Force is with you. This has Sentinel. And a 5/4 Sentinel for 4 is actually really good. We've seen this Sentinel stat line before on B2 Legionnaire, but that was a 5 resource card. This comes out a turn earlier and has really good traits. The Force token also isn't that hard to get if you run a dedicated Force deck. A couple early game Force units. You do 1 attack and bam, you get a 5/4 Force Sentinel. You never even really need to use the Force. Just getting that Force token for the rest of the game, Jedi Sentinel is a Sentinel. The problem I have though is Yellow Hero going to want to run Force. And again, we don't know. However, we do know Qui-Gon Jinn is a really interesting Force dependent Yellow Hero leader. So I think I'm going to give Jedi Sentinel 3 stars. It's the best of the Jedi class cards, but it depends on the rare bases. And are there any cards that are going to generate a Force token? The other thing I want to note is, are there going to be enough cards that also generate a Force token that aren't related to the bases at all? Because if that's true, if there's 2 or 3 cards that you can run in a deck like this that generate the Force token and let you run any other base, that could also really matter and make Jedi Sentinel a really good card. I will say, I have been thinking about a Yellow Hero control deck. We're starting to get a lot of pieces together that are making this seem like a reality. So 3 stars for Jedi Sentinel. I think it's the best Jedi class we're getting. And it's kind of a spoiler alert because the next card, Jedi Knight, and that is Red Hero's Jedi class. Jedi Knight is a 3-cost, 3/3 Force Jedi with the when played. If you have the initiative, deal 2 damage to an enemy ground unit. This is overpriced for the stats. Really, a 3/3 equivalent typically is 2 resources. It will occasionally deal 2 damage, which is kind of like a total of 8 stats worth of stuff. And that's only if your opponent has a ground unit and only if you have the initiative. It's 2 conditional. I just don't think it's good. 1 star. I think Jedi Knight is not great. Next up is the Tuk'Ata, which is a 3-cost aggression creature with 4 attack and 2 health, and the hidden keyword. And it seems like FFG is playing it a little safe with hidden, because the only way to defeat hidden creatures that turn their played is removal. You can't have them being too beefy, and they would just become uncounterable, right? It would be almost disgusting, which again is why I think Third Sister could be good, but stay tuned for that rating. A 4/2 hidden creature is just scary enough that you play it down. If your opponent is within range of being defeated, they're going to have to claim if they don't have the removal to deal with it. Because if they don't, you just claim, and then you just pop them next turn, and they're done. Also, this leader was just revealed, and I haven't talked about him yet, but Kanan Jarrus can give this guy a shield. And with hidden, it makes him way more likely to survive. So, you know, a 4-resource, 4/2 shielded is actually, again, kind of good. Now, is a creature deck going to see play? Is Kanan going to see play? I don't know. Especially if Kanan is the only creature leader, since you're stuck in red-blue, and a 6-flip leader. However, Kanan is nuts. We'll talk about him later. I think Tuk'Ata is a 2-star card. It'll be really cool to deal like final little bits of damage in an aggressive deck. It's just, will there be one that wants to run this guy? There's just a lot of things that can deal with 2 health indirectly that aren't attacking. So he might be a little bit tough to make work. Next up is the Terentatek, which I'm sure I butchered. It's a 5-resource green creature with 5 attack and 5 health, and the ability, if your opponent controls a force unit, this unit gains ambush. So this set, we're going to see a lot of force units see play by nature of the set being like force themed. He will often have ambush, but not always. We also have seen 5-cost 5/5 ambush see play in blue leader. However, that was like an extreme upside of being able to be played in space and for 3 resources, which is very significant. Like, I don't want to downplay that, but I just wanted to say that a 5-resource 5/5 ambush has seen play. We also know that essentially to be competitive, a 4-resource card needs to deal like 5 damage worth of stuff, right? So I'm thinking something like if you look at modded cohort with Boba Daimyo or Forlom and Cad Bane, since you get the ping, right? Something like that is extremely important. At 5 resources, we need to see 7 damage or at minimum 6 damage of ambush stats to want to see play. So I think even best case scenario, this guy's a little too weak to really come out and see play. And I think it's a 1-star card. It's also in a bad creature color. I don't think green is going to be that great as a creature deck. I think the Terentatek is a 1-star card. And our last card for the day and our last legend timeline card for this set is Cure Wounds, which is a 1-resource vigilance force event that says use the force. If you do, heal 6 damage from a unit. And right now in Star Wars Unlimited, damage typically all happens at once, and very, very rarely do we deal mass amounts of damage and not finish off a card. And if that happens, you're typically in a bad spot anyway, right? Like you're like, I gotta uncleanly trade my unit into this person to then take them down. It's not what you want to be doing most times. Now, I will say, if you play this on a really beefy Sentinel, think like Nema Outpost guard, in like a Ray deck, this can really slow down things like Sabine, right? Forcing them to deal something like 13 damage to defeat your unit is really good. As an anti-aggro card, this could sneak in as like a 1 or 2 of in some blue decks, especially since I think Ray is going to be good. Also, this card is really good in Chirrut decks. Really one of the most common ways to defeat Chirrut, if you can't defeat him with like a takedown the turn he's flipped, is you're going to have to beat into him. And Cure Wounds, just 1-cost heal 6, since Chirrut's force. If you're running a force deck, you would continually keep getting the force token and being able to Cure Wounds him. So in Chirrut, it's also a good card. I'm going to give it 2 stars. since it's a tech card against aggro, and it's going to be good in Sharut. And that is all the cards that I have for you today. I really want to thank the YouTube members for supporting the channel. That's Ganix and my newest member, Revaki, who joined right around the time of the 6 tips to get better at Star Wars Unlimited video. So I thank you all for giving me the support. If you want to join the Discord and take part in the community card ratings, the deck building, the looking for groups and playing, please feel free to join the Discord. The link will be in the description below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and see ya.